Morning, most of you guys. I figured I was spending today working on um, the I'm studying for health promotions. I realized it was just this week that you guys also have a health alt test this week. I am so sorry about that. So I just wanted to get this out here. I'm sorry. I've been running since Friday morning with everybody. Haven't had a chance to get this out, and I thought I'd already done it. So anyways, the mental health section, remember the effective coping skills is also called adaptation. Remember that mild anxiety can be good. It can actually make us perform better. The fight or the flight mechanism is an effective coping skill. And the more you use them, the more they'll help. Ineffective coping skills or ineffective defense mechanisms. Go through and make sure you know the definitions for these. Denial is basically refusing to see the reality. They're not purposely lying, but they are not believing that the event actually occurred. Like, they don't believe that their friend passed away in a car accident last night, or those types of things. Repression. This is the same as that's in the first unit. Basically, that person's burying or forgetting an event because it's too traumatic or too painful. You see this with the child abuse. Rationalization. They just try and find a logical excuse to cover up whatever stressful event there was. Compensation. This person's making up for an inadequate trait by developing a wanted trait. Remember, we gave the example of the person who is poor at school, so they excel in sports, or they're really bad at sports, so they excel in their schoolwork. Reaction formation is that opposite reaction. The opposite trait, like that video with the girl who's about to meet her boyfriend's ex-girlfriend, and she's like, I don't want to meet her, and when she comes in, she is actually, oh, hi, how are you? And, buddy. I was wondering what was wrong with my computer. Regression. The person's returning to an earlier age. Might be, what's the word I want? Midlife crisis. Sorry, I haven't even had any coffee yet this morning because I was trying to get this done before the kids come down. Projection. Ascribing one's unacceptable traits or feelings onto someone else. So if I feel like, if I'm mad at someone for something and I'm going to tell them that me and my daughter, we don't like it when you do this. So, displacement, transfer of anger to a person less powerful. Like, it's the kid who's in the automobile accident because of a drunk driver. The dad's going to get really upset at the hospital staff. Restitution is just basically undoing or making it right. Conversion reaction is when that anxiety actually turns into physical symptoms. And avoidance is just unconsciously staying away from those events or situations that cause stress. So the 3 levels of stress is the alarm reaction. This is your first month in nursing school. Causes the sympathetic nervous system to start working and be on more of an alert. Resistance. This is years 1, 2, or semesters 1, 2, and 3, where the body's adapting to the stressor. And then exhaustion. This is the end of 4th semester. Occurs when the body cannot adapt anymore. They're just tired. They're worn out. So what do we do as nurses? Just help teach how to cope and deal with the stressors till it can be over. Know the different mild, moderate, and severe anxieties. Remember, mild is good. It actually helps us perform better. Might be just like fidgeting, or they might be a little bit irritable. Um, Moderate anxiety. This is the one where you focus just at what's in front of you. Everything else is ignored. Um, Severe anxiety. I'm just going to let you guys kind of look over some of these. In severe anxiety, our patients aren't able to identify their own needs. They need someone to help with them. They'll focus on whatever's causing the stress, the anxiety. Symptoms will be worse, more intense. They might have a feeling of dread. These are like major events, like someone passes away, or there's been an accident, or someone loses their job. So we want to make sure that we're staying with these guys, making sure they're safe. We need to stay calm because that'll keep them calm. I'll go back up so you guys can see some. There. Keep stimulus down. Make sure we're talking in clear, simple statements. And if their anxiety is too bad, we may actually have to medicate or seclude them. So look over all the mild, moderate, and severe anxiety. PTSD. This is what a person will develop in response to an event, emotional or physical, where there's a real threat to life or there's a real threat to harm, and the patient couldn't do anything about it. So, could be a rape, could be a most common one right now is war. Term in PTSD is survivor guilt. The person that survived is feeling pretty guilty because they survived and maybe their friend did not. Flashbacks. The person might actually relive the event in the moment. Things can trigger an event. Example, my friend Doc, when the fireworks went off, he was gone. He thought he was in Vietnam. Symptoms, it's going to be the flashbacks, the dissociative reactions, the nightmares, avoidance, they might be socially withdrawn, low self-esteem, difficulty in making new relationships, difficulty keeping relationships. These folks might be hypervigilant, irritable, depressed, and they might turn to drinking or other things to help them cope. Major depression. This is depression, but it is where it interferes with a person's daily life, their social functioning, their work functions. They have what's called anhedonia, which is the loss of pleasure in things that are usually pleasurable. They might have suicidal thoughts. They might have repetitive negative thoughts. So we always just need to make sure we are assessing for the suicidal ideations in any patient that's depressed. Bipolar disorder. It's that mood disorder in which patients are experiencing mania and depression. They're on both ends of the spectrum. The mania episodes, they are extremely high, but the depressive episodes, they are depressed longer, their symptoms are worse. Yeah, it's not the normal just depression, it's worse than a regular depression. Cycles may come slowly, they may come rapidly, it could be months, could be days, could be hours. It just kind of depends on the person's baseline. So, some of these manic symptoms, they're very high moods that last at least a week. They have increased energy, activity, they have a decreased need for sleep. I've seen manic people who've gotten 3 hours of sleep in a week. But they have done all of this stuff. They have painted and they have rearranged their house and they've done this and they've done that, but they haven't gotten tired. They're grandiose, like they can save the world. Very distractible because their thoughts are all over the place. Poor judgment. Rapid speech. Their ideas are all over the place. Oh crap, here comes the monster. Bailey's coming down to take the dog out. So. Maybe. I'm just going to pause it till Kate chills out a bit. Alright guys, we'll keep trying to do this. Me and my daughter sit and hold her monster, and then my old dog is kind of rolling around on the ground down there. So anyway, symptoms of mania. The high moods that last at least a week, that's for diagnosis. The increased energy, the increased activity, decreased need for sleep, grandiosity. They're easily distractible. They may be irritable. They have very poor judgment. Their speech is rapid. They have a flight of ideas. They're going about 90 miles an hour. They have an increase in goal-predicted behavior. That doesn't mean that they have a goal, they set it. They have another goal, they set it. It just means that they have all these goals and they have like maybe 7 of them going on at one time, and they're trying to do things to get to all 7 goals. And they may only reach one goal. They have a lot of involvement in pleasurable activities, whether it's drinking, whether it's sex, whether it's gambling, you name it. And they can be very intrusive in your face. I don't like the word obnoxious on here, but that's what came out of the book. But they can be very intrusive. There is no space or personal space. Schizophrenia. This is it's just a serious disorder of the thought and the inability to determine what's real and what's not. There's hallucinations, delusions, and social withdrawal with this. So the 4 phases are the schizoid personality, where they're indifferent, they're cold, they're aloof. Remember the example I gave was my cousin. Growing up, he would be in his room playing Nintendo. Okay, yes, I just dated myself, but Atari, Nintendo. And if we wanted to see him, we went in his room. We always knew he was a little bit different, but never, back then we never knew any of that. The prodromal phase is where they're still socially withdrawn, but their behavior is a little more eccentric, a little different. And it's clear that there's issues in communication, their thoughts, and their perception. So moving on, this is with my cousin. He'd gone out, he had gotten a job, and he would do different things. I mean, he wouldn't do the common. It was a factory job, and he wouldn't follow the normal pattern of things. He did his own thing. Or he would be out dancing in his front lawn at 3 o'clock in the morning. So then it moved on to the schizophrenia phase, the active phase. The psychotic symptoms were more evident, hallucinations, delusions, and issues with work and social situations. So when my cousin hit this phase, he started drinking a lot to cover it up. And one day he just couldn't do it anymore. He called his mom and said, something's wrong, I hear people. He had gotten home he'd gone to work, then gone to the bar, and then gotten home and could hear all these people talking to him, saying all these bad things. And he searched his entire house, and there was nobody there. And he's like, I know there's nobody there, but it's like you come home from a long day at work, and you hear somebody saying really mean things to you, so you go to search them out, and you can't find them. And then they keep talking, so then you go search another place, and you can't find them. So it's a very, very, very sad illness. Residual phase is just kind of the same as the prodromal phase. Some people never make it to this one, but it's the flat affect and their roles are still impaired. So positive symptoms of schizophrenia, which if you think of it that they're in excess of their normal function, the hallucinations, the illusions, the delusions, and then disorganized thinking and disorganized behaviors. Negative symptoms, which if you figure it's what's missing from their normal functioning. Hold on, let me get a drink. Their affect might be blunt or might be flat. They have alogia. It's just basically they don't have the unprompted speech content. They have avolition, where they have a decrease in the motivation to perform self-directed, purposeful activities. For example, sometimes you may see somebody with schizophrenia with disheveled hair, or they're unkempt because they don't have this motivation. I know when we did our training one time when I was in psych, we put headphones on and pretended, and we had to do a bus schedule. We had to do different things. I couldn't even think to tell my boss who the president was. I actually swore at him. They have apathy, anhedonia, and they're socially isolated. Apparently now I'm giving a public speech. My whole family's coming down, and they're really funny because they tiptoe around the corner and look at me. We're almost done anyway, guys. Alcohol abuse disorder, CNS depressant disorder. People who are experiencing alcohol abuse may have binges that last 2 or more days. They may have blackouts, vomiting, dehydration, disorientation. And because they've done all this damage to their body, they're more at risk for infections, accidents, injuries. The big thing I want you to take away from the alcohol abuse disorder is that when somebody drinks every day, they build up a tolerance. So when they stop drinking, they go through the detox symptoms, which are elevated blood pressure, elevated pulse. They will be shaky. They might have tactile disturbances, so it might feel like they're got the creepy crawlies. They'd be nauseous, headache. Some of my students got to do CWA scales on their patients this semester up at Mauston. So you guys kind of understand the types of symptoms that we're looking for. So if a person starts with detox symptoms and they are not treated, or they're not treated with enough Ativan, they can actually go into delirium tremens. Basically, the neurotransmitters in the brain are not suppressed anymore, and so they're actually hypersensitive, which causes all of the symptoms to worsen, the shaking, the blood pressure, the pulse, to all become worse. They can actually have visual hallucinations. I always knew that we were close to someone going into the DTs when they started picking at the air. They'd lay in their chair and they'd pick out pieces. Their tremors get worse, and they can actually go into tonic-clonic or grand mal seizures. Suicide. Whenever we have a patient that is suicidal, we need to make sure that we're assessing their verbal and their nonverbal clues. Are they making any comments about what they plan on doing, how they plan on doing it? So the biggest, most important thing we need to assess is assess their plan. Look at it and see if they have a plan. If the plan is lethal, and does the patient have means to access the plan? If they have a plan to, I don't know, eat 3 bags of Skittles, we need to look and see, is that plan lethal? Well, no, probably not. Or do they have a plan to use a gun? Is that plan lethal? Yeah, absolutely. Um, does that patient have means to access the plan? So maybe they have guns at home. Then it gets to be pretty serious, pretty serious threat. Um, if they don't have access to a gun, then it's not um, quite as serious. I mean, obviously, it's very serious if someone's talking about suicide. Um, but we always need to assess those three things when they talk about their suicide plan. And then our last topic is crisis management. Just a short-term emotional event that a person cannot manage with their normal coping mechanisms. So there are three types. The maturational, this is something that occurs during development. So high school basically is a maturational crisis. Anything that occurs in high school. Situational crisis, something anticipated. It's an external source or external stressor. Most people will encounter some sort of situational crisis in their lifetime. Loss of a job, loss of a loved one, something that pretty much everyone will experience at one point or another. Adventitious, this is a disaster. Not everybody deals with this at one point in their life. Could be like a natural disaster, a national disaster, a rape, a robbery, something that is a big, big stressor and not common for everybody to go through. So what do we do when we have a patient that's going through one of these three crises? Obviously, number one goal is safety. Make sure they're not suicidal, make sure they're not homicidal. So like if there's a family who went through a robbery, maybe one of the children died, that mom or dad may be homicidal. We need to make sure that we're able to keep everybody safe and make sure he's not going out trying to hurt someone. And then we also need to reduce the anxiety. Teach them coping mechanisms, teach them how to deal with all of it. So this is it. I will get this posted right now as soon as it loads up to my computer. And then if you guys have any questions today, I'm going to be around the computer between doing work stuff and helping my nephew with a paper. I'll be around, and I am charging my phone, which should be working soon. So if you guys need anything, get a hold of me, okay? Alright. I lost my little box here.